On June 7, 1999, at 1:50 a.m. and residents of the Tric-Ile-Fontanier neighborhood of Caumy, Malta were suddenly woken by a loud explosion coming from an apartment building, prompting concerned neighbors to call for an ambulance and the police, who quickly arrived and entered the apartment, where Dr. Antonella Mizzi from the Caumy Health Center announced a man, 31-year-old Kevin Camilleri, dead at the scene. The magistrate ordered an inquiry into the incident, in which she appointed several experts, including the building's architect Richard Aquilina, forensic doctor Mario Scheri, and a military officer trained in dealing with explosives named Albert Camilleri, along with several crime scene investigators. Several other police officers attended the crime scene as well, including the two commissioners, George Gresh and John Rizzo, the superintendent Daniel Gatt, and two inspectors named David Saliba and Mario Bonici. Kevin lived alone with his mother, 50-year-old Frances Camilleri, who stated that she went to bed at 11:30 p.m. but that before going to sleep she saw Kevin alive and well and playing a game of chess with a friend. Frances testified that she was suddenly woken up by the loud explosion, smoke and burning smell, and saw Kevin wearing only his underwear hastily exiting his room and screaming, "Ajma! Ajma! Ajma!" which is a Maltese term for describing pain. Afterwards, he quickly fell to the floor face down, with his concerned mother calling her daughter, 26-year-old Antoinette, and stating that Kevin's television exploded and that he was injured. Antoinette informed her partner, 30-year-old Simon Spiteri, and the two who lived nearby managed to both arrive before the police and emergency services could, and observed that Kevin was still faintly breathing, although he likely passed away not long afterwards, since he was announced dead on the scene. The police determined that the explosion was the result of a pipe bomb placed in between Kevin's window shutters, which open inwards, and that the device had caused significant damage to Kevin's bedroom and minor damage to the apartment's structure. The blast was also strong enough to shatter the windows of neighboring homes, apartments and cars inside the house. The police observed blood and handprints on the bathroom wall, indicating that Kevin, like Frances said, Kevin was still alive briefly after the bomb went off. An autopsy was performed on Kevin, which determined that he had suffered extensive burns to his chest and abdomen, as well as a fracture in the palm of his hand and elbow, which indicated he was looking in the direction of the explosion. He was awake and standing up at the time of the explosion, and that he was standing about 50 centimeters away from the explosion based on his injuries. The autopsy also noted that Kevin had smoked marijuana recently before his death. As Kevin's bedroom window was on ground level and facing the sidewalk, meaning it would have been easy for someone to slip the explosive into his window. The police began to track Kevin's movements and learned that the last time he was seen alive was the day prior, on June 6. Kevin was seen in a park smoking with two friends, Alex Malia and Ian Gaulds, both 21 years old. Before Kevin returned to his apartment to play chess with Ian before Ian left, and what happened afterwards is unknown. Kevin had a prior criminal record, being sentenced to 3 years imprisonment for theft in May 1991, but he and his friends were also once a suspect in a much more serious offense. On September 29, 1990, a 30-year-old night watchman at a pasta factory in Caumy. He had entered the factory and found 3 intruders in the buildings. Borg was shot by the men 3 times in his leg, and when he attempted to call for help, he was shot 4 more times with a shot to his back, killing him. The police investigated the crime as a robbery gone wrong and not a premeditated murder. Forensic investigators discovered shoe prints at the scene and sent them to a forensics lab in Germany, which confirmed that they belonged to the slippers worn by inmates at Corradino prison. At the scene, the police also recovered a large metal tool of sorts which was used to cut through the factory windows, but no safe cracking tools were found, meaning the killers either took them with them or they had not broken in to loot the factory's safe. Later in the investigation, the police discovered the getaway vehicle torched in a field. It's how they came under suspicion, but the police strongly suspected Kevin and Ian as being two of the three thieves, although the evidence wasn't strong enough to arraign them on these charges. #Damp X200B. #Damp X200B. Police believed their suspicions of Kevin's involvement in this crime could have been a motive for his own death. When they questioned Alex and Ian, the two testified that in 1997 they were out for a drive and noticed that they were being followed by a Fiat car, and Kevin told the two that he recognized the car as belonging to one of Joe Borg's family members and that the driver had been following and stalking him, as they blamed him for Joe's murder. Police tracked the driver of the vehicle down, and he confessed to having stalked Kevin on numerous occasions but denied any involvement in the bombing and provided police with an alibi which was later confirmed by investigators. Afterwards, police sought other suspects, with Kevin's mother Frances stating that she believed her to be the intended target, as she had recently reported two of her work colleagues at Sir Paul Boffa Hospital for stealing while on the job, but like with Kevin's vengeful stalker, this lead came up empty. The police were given one more suspect mentioned by the partner of Kevin's sister, Simon Spiteri. Although he explained that they did not suspect them of building the bomb and killing Kevin, he provided the police with the names of those whom he wasn't on good terms with, and one such man was simply named George. George and Kevin used to be great friends, and George had a particular interest in watching Kevin have sex with his wife and took great enjoyment in viewing this activity. George and Kevin, however, had a fight in 1996 which ended their friendship. This lead would again come up empty, despite the police view and even still viewing Kevin's case as a murder. They'd soon be forced to consider another theory, and that being that Kevin had made the bomb himself and accidentally killed himself with it. Kevin's sister and Antoinette were questioned and told the police that they had observed Kevin stockpiling pieces of metal in his room and even found a car exhaust pipe once. On a different occasion, on June 4, Simon noticed a long pipe on Kevin's windowsill which he described as 14 cm long with a diameter of 8 cm. It had two cross-shaped bolts and another thin pipe with matches tied with thread or string, and he stated that the matches were on fire. When he went to talk to Kevin about this later, the pipe had vanished once going inside his room. Antoinette had also noticed the pipe on June 5, but Kevin told her to leave when she brought it up. And by the next day the pipe was gone. When the police arrived, Antoinette pointed out a piece of metal which resembled the pipe she had seen earlier, and the police had Antoinette and Simon draw a sketch of the pipe they reported seeing, which matched the makeup of the bomb. The police decided to attempt a test and recreate the incident, and determined that if Kevin had made the bomb and accidentally set it off, he would have 40 seconds to place the bomb on his windowsill, close the shutters, and then move away to where he was standing when the device exploded. The police ruled that this would be possible, albeit narrow under these time constraints. Due to Kevin having been intoxicated at the time due to the marijuana he had smoked before his death, he could have been unaware of the dangerous device he was handling and lit the bomb's fuse by mistake and without noticing. Eventually, despite both the credible theories of murder or an accidental death, the police were unable to determine which one had actually happened and shelved Kevin's case, labeling it as an unsolved homicide. However, if Kevin did build the bomb himself, then the question would be why. What was the bomb for? Kevin's friend Ian Goulds would be one of the 4 men involved in the murder of a police officer named Roger DeBattista on November 12, 2001, during a failed robbery. Due to his young age and the fact that he didn't personally kill Roger, the courts were lenient and gave him a sentence of 7 years before being released on November 3, 2006. Ian was found dead in his mother's house on March 1, 2007, having passed away from a drug overdose. *Sources*. *Other European crimes*.